Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mind Map. Today's topic of discussion is the Representation of the People Act. First of all, we will discuss about the introduction of the topic, then we will discuss about Representation of the People Act, its significance, challenges and way forward. First of all, moving on to the introduction of the topic. The holding of free and fair elections is the sine qua non of democracy. To ensure the conduct of elections in free, fair and in an impartial manner, the Constitution Makers incorporated Part 15, Articles 324 to 329 in the Constitution. The Constitution empowered the Parliament to make laws to regulate the electoral process. Article 324 of the Constitution provides for the establishment of the Election Commission of India. The Election Commission of India is the watchdog of free and fair elections in the country. In this context, the Parliament has enacted the Representation of the People Act 1950 and the Representation of the People Act 1951. Now let's discuss about Representation of the People Act. To provide a legal framework for the conduct of elections, Parliament passed the Representation of the People Act 1950. It lays down procedures for delimitation of constituencies. It provides the allocation of seats in the House of the People and in the legislative assemblies and legislative councils of states. It lays procedure for the preparation of electoral rolls and the manner of filling seats. It lays down the qualification of voters. Representation of People Act 1951. It regulates the actual conduct of elections and by-elections. It provides administrative machinery for conducting elections. It deals with the registration of political parties. It specifies the qualifications and disqualifications for membership of the houses. It lays down the procedure for settling doubts and disputes arising out of elections. Following are the main provisions of the Act. First is qualification for contesting elections in India. A person must be an elector in the constituency. The person must be a member of a scheduled caste or scheduled tribe in any state or UTs if he or she wants to contest a seat reserved for them. The minimum age for becoming an MLA or MP's Lok Sabha is 25 years. Next is right to vote. It ensures that every person who is in the electoral roll of that constituency is entitled to vote. One person can vote in one constituency only and only for one time in a particular election. If a person is imprisoned, then he is not eligible for voting. However, in the case of preventive custody, he can vote. The Act allows those serving sentences less than 2 years to contest elections from prison. Nota option. None of the above was introduced in the ballot papers or electronic voting machine in general election to the state assemblies in 2013. VVPAT, that is Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail. It is an independent system that allows voters to verify that their votes are cast as intended. It was introduced in 2013 after the SC allowed the ECI in its verdict in the People's Union for Civil Liberties versus Union of India case 2013. Provisions related to political parties. In order to become a political party, a body must be registered with the ECI whose decision regarding registration will be final. Registered political parties in course of time can get recognition as state party or national party. The ECI cannot derecognize a party. Next is voluntary contributions. It is mandatory for the political parties to submit to the ECI a list of donations they received above Rs 2000. Political parties cannot receive more than 2000 as cash donations. Declaration of assets and liabilities. Individuals contesting elections have to file an affidavit declaring their criminal records, assets and liabilities and educational qualification. After getting elected, MPs are required to file a declaration of assets and liabilities with the Speaker of the Lok Sabha and the Chairman of Rajya Sabha. These declarations have to be made by MPs within 90 days of taking their seats in Parliament. Candidates need to furnish information, that is, whether he or she is accused of any offence punishable with imprisonment of 2 years or more in a pending case or has been convicted of an offence. 48 hours before the polling ends or concludes, displaying of any election matter by television or similar apparatus in a constituency is prohibited. It is not applicable to print media, news portals and social medias. ROPA 1951 prohibits the conduct of exit polls and dissemination of its results during the period mentioned. A candidate in large states can spend up to Rs 70 lakh in the Lok Sabha election and Rs 28 lakh in an assembly election. Prohibition of public meetings during a period of 48 hours ending with the hour fixed for the conclusion of the poll. Disqualification of MPs and MLAs. The RPA 1951 lays down certain rules for disqualification of MPs and MLAs. The Act states that if an MP or MLA is convicted for any other crime and is sent to jail for 2 years or more, he or she will be disqualified for 6 years from the time of the release. Even if a person is on bail after the conviction and his appeal is pending for disposal, he is disqualified from contesting an election. It allowed convicted MPs, MLAs, and MLCs to continue in their post if they appealed within 3 months of the date of judgment by the trial court. Now moving on to significance of the acts. The provision of direct election makes the process of election more democratic and participatory. The RPA 1950 provides for delimitation, which brings equality in the process of election. The Act strengthened the federal polity by giving due representation to each state in the parliament. By prohibiting the entry of persons with a criminal background into the electoral process, thus decriminalizing Indian politics. It provides for the expenditure monitoring mechanism which ensures accountability and transparency. Moving on to challenges, candidates do not disclose all the assets and provide wrong and incomplete information regarding their assets, liabilities, and income. Even though the ECI is an independent body, it is still dependent on the Union for financial matters. The ECI does not have independent staff of its own. The ROPAs lack clear provisions and guidelines on various matters. Now lastly, let's discuss about the way forward. There should be a prohibition or restriction on opinion polls as they could impact the voting pattern. False declarations should be made as an offense or ground for disqualification. Expenditure of ECI should be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. And to minimize the role of money in elections, provisions should be made for state funding of elections. Now it's time for the practice question. First of all, prelims question. Consider the following statements about Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2017. 1. It aims to provide online voting for overseas Indians. 2. It aims to provide for proxy voting for overseas Indians. 3. It aims to make election gender neutral. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 only or 2 only? And now mains question. The entire electoral exercise in India rests on 3 pillars: Article 326 of the Constitution, the Representation of the People Act 1950 and the Representation of the People Act 1951. Explain. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching.